So, would you believe me if I told you that we have white South Africans, racism. We have racism against white people. And to make it even more suspicious, or to make it even more ironical, black Africans in South Africa are being racist to the white South Africans here.
At that point, the African National Congress was still a revolutionary organization. But the ANC got infiltrated.
Okay.
And that infiltration started already during the exile years. Because there was a plan by the big white monopoly capitalist companies in this country, also together with international imperialism, to infiltrate the ANC. To also make some of the leaders of the ANC dependent on the funding and the finances that they were giving them. And they were starting to buy over people. Also, the intelligence services infiltrated the ANC, the CIA, MI6, MI7 from the British side, and many other Western intelligence agencies.
Yeah. And sorry.
Now, I just want to emphasize this because already in the mid-1980s, when the ANC met with the big captains of industry from South Africa in Lusaka, if you listen to an interview that Comrade Ronnie Casuals gave many years later, he says, I was absolutely shocked and surprised by how quickly the leadership of the ANC went belly up and agreed with those captains of white monopoly capitalist big industry that the economy should not change, that there should not be a transfer of the land and of the big means of production into the hands of the people. So then already the ANC had been infiltrated. But the worst thing that happened to the ANC was during the negotiating process, during CODESA. When obviously people like Cyril Ramaphosa, Pravin Gordhan, and others had already been made agents of white monopoly capitalism. But they were still appearing there as those who were working for the PSA. And he was criticizing what was happening there in very clear terms. I remember a week before he was assassinated, I shared a stage with him in Boksburg, where he said, CODESA is going to be the death of the liberation struggle. It's going to destroy the ANC. The compromises that are being made, the compromises on land, the compromises also on the so-called sunset clauses, the way in which civil servants from the white community are being guaranteed their jobs until they will retire, will make it impossible for us to be able to change this country and give to our people what we've promised them. And I'm convinced that there were not just a little right-wing clique, Clive Derby Lewis and Janusz Walusz. No. I'm convinced that there were also senior members of the African National Congress who were part of these sellouts, who had already become part of these people who were now in the service of white monopoly capitalism, who saw that Chris was a real danger to them, because his popularity was unsurpassed. The likelihood that after Madiba retired, that Chris could have taken over as president was huge. And the white monopoly capitalists and imperialists said, never in our lives, because this man has not bought into the new liberal sell-out policy program that we have introduced, that we have infiltrated into the African National Congress. He has to be removed. And that is the reason why Comrade Chris was assassinated.
So
I believe, I must say, make this point, I believe that it is critical. And I hope that when the economic freedom fighters finally become the government of this country, that we will return to investigate properly what happened with the assassination of Chris Hani, and how and who were involved, also from the side of the ANC. Those files mustn't be closed. It is part of our liberation history, and we owe it to the legacy of Comrade Chris to come out with the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
You were on your own at the time. Your father kicked you out of the house. Was your mother of the same sentiment? Did she also reject you?
Look, my mother, of course, is a mother.
Yes.
So she wasn't as strong as my dad. But remember, in the Afrikaans community, it's a very patriarchal society. And the woman in the house, the mother, takes the lead from the father. So she couldn't really go against my dad. She tried to be kinder to me than my dad was, but she couldn't bring me back to the home because my dad said I had to leave.
Yeah.
And you must understand that the rest of the Afrikaner family, on both sides, from my mum's side and my dad's side, were very much against me. In fact, they thought I was absolutely the worst possible thing that could have happened to the family.
Yeah.
And many of them up to this day still reject me, and they've not accepted me.
So they don't appreciate the fact that you chose to be on the side of the native people of South Africa during, their time of oppression and obviously during the apartheid era.
Titus, we have to accept that the majority of white people and also Afrikaner people have not changed. The reality is that they still hold on to those old ideals of apartheid. They still want to continue to think of themselves as a superior race. The reality is that they still hold on to the land. Behind you, there's a poster that says, white people own 72% of the land. That is a reality. And I'm very clear that the land must be returned.
So here is a quick video about why the white people are so afraid of Julius Malema. These people are not afraid of Julius Malema, only they are afraid of the message of Julius Malema. Because let me tell you something. Somebody commented on my comment section that one day Julius Malema might be deleted. But, even if they delete Julius Malema, what can happen is that they cannot delete the message. Nobody can stop reggae. Somebody says that. So the message will still continue. And without further ado, I want us to listen to this video where the brother is going to share a very thoughtful insight about the situation of white South Africans in South Africa and why the EFF is a threat to the white people. Is it really a threat, or are they perceiving it as a threat? Perception are not facts. So let's watch this video and then I'll give you my thoughts towards the end of the video.
But what I do believe is Madiba wanted to give us the first step towards our democracy. We had a responsibility to take it further. We had a responsibility to now implement radical economic transformation programs to give us that economic freedom in our lifetime. But we never did so. In fact, instead, we did nothing to change those dynamics that were first embedded in this new liberal constitution. One of the people I blame for that is Thabo Mbeki. Thabo Mbeki was the president of the ANC with the largest majority in parliament. He was the president who had a 2/3 majority. He did nothing, dololo, with that majority. It was wasted.
Yeah.
He could have changed the constitution because he had the 2/3 majority, the power to do so. He could have removed Section 25 of the constitution. He could have returned the land to the people. He could have nationalized the South African Reserve Bank. He could have taken that clause in the constitution that gives the Reserve Bank this very, very narrow definition that it is only supposed to concentrate on inflation targeting and it mustn't get involved in economic policy and economic growth programs. All of those things that our fellow fighter, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane, in her report the SAIEX report and about APSA and what happened with Bancorp. She wrote in that report also that the South African Reserve Bank's mandate should change. Now, Thabo Mbeki knew that it had to change if he really wanted to bring liberation and economic empowerment.
The EFF, after such a long time being with the ANC.
As I said to you, last year I decided the ANC is beyond redemption. Go and read my resignation letter. I say the ANC is finished. It's dead. I move on. And then I created, together with a couple of other comrades, the African Radical Economic Transformation Alliance. Now, right from the beginning, Areta said our purpose is not just to exist for the sake of our own existence. Our purpose is to advance a radical economic transformation in this country. And our purpose is to work for unity amongst the progressive left. Because we believe very strongly that it is only in our unity as the left that we will be able to get rid of this sell-out ANC. This is where I want to be. And I see on social media there are those people who say to me, well, why don't you go to MK Party? We think you should come there. We think the culture of MK Party suits you better. Why? There's no such. I've made a clear, unequivocal, very rational decision to become a fighter in the economic freedom fighters. Let everyone understand me clearly. I knew that President Zuma was going to announce the MK Party. It didn't catch me off guard. He told me exactly what he was going to do in advance. And I told President Zuma exactly what I was going to do and the other members of Areta were going to do in advance. He knew when we called that press conference 2 days before he made his announcement that we were going to announce that we as individual members of Areta are joining the economic freedom fighters. And I'm here to work. I'm not here to play. I'm here to be available for any job and the EFF wants to give me. I told the Commander-in-Chief when I met him on Saturday, I'm here to work. I'm at the service of the economic freedom fighters. Tell me what to do. I will do it. And now we must campaign and fight to make the EFF the largest party that will become the government of South Africa after the 2024 elections, because this 2024 must be our.
Someone comes out now and say the ANC misled Parliament, misled the public about a swimming pool being, a fire pool. What do you make of such statement? Is it a last kick of a dying horse? What do you make?
There's an old saying, those that God want to destroy, he first makes mad. And I listened to that madness by Fikile Mbalula. So what he was by implication telling us is, we backing President Ramaphosa, we covering up on Phala Phala. We know that it's wrong, but we're continuing to do it because
in defense of their
we are in defense of this crook, and we will continue to do so, regardless of what we know is wrong. That is what he was really telling us. You see, and that is what we've been saying. The ANC has become a criminal enterprise. It is no longer even a political party. It is a mafia institution, which is only concerned about the sustaining of its own power, of the money that it can steal from the people of this country. And at the head of this organization, as the old saying goes, a fish rots from the head, is the main mafia character, Cyril Ramaphosa, because there is no way, there is absolutely no way that you can defend what happened at Phala Phala. It was criminal in terms of the amount of money there in terms of the breaking of the various rules and regulations around foreign exchange. There's no way you can justify not reporting a so-called crime. There's no way you can justify gender-based violence because a domestic worker, a woman domestic worker, was illegally detained and tortured. You cannot justify what the South African Reserve Bank did. You cannot justify what the South African Revenue Service did. You cannot. Yeah. And Advocate Busisiwe Ngubane asked 32 questions that exposed the whole rot that was going on there. And in return, she was immediately suspended. And as a thank you for her service to the nation, to try and get the people of South Africa to realize how deep the criminality in our country goes, she was eventually impeached. And that's what Cyril Ramaphosa is, a mafia don. He's not a president. He should never have been the leader of this country. He was parachuted. And I must talk about this for just a second. He was parachuted into the leadership of the ANC in 1991 at the then Durban conference, coming from nowhere. No one actually even knew if Cyril Ramaphosa was, at that stage when he walked into that conference, a member of the ANC. I sat 2 chairs away on the stage from Comrade Oliver Reginald Tambo. And when Ramaphosa walked into the conference hall, he said, "Ubani Law, who's that?" That who's that nobody at the end of the conference suddenly was the Secretary General. Why? Because the white monopoly capitalists came and told Madiba, make Ramaphosa the Secretary General. Irene Menel, Clive Menel, Harry Oppenheimer, those were Cyril Ramaphosa's campaign managers for him to become the Secretary General of the ANC. It was a disaster when he became Secretary General. I worked with that.
So the same modus operandi repeated itself in 2017?
Well, it's actually a bigger tragedy because one of my disagreements, my few disagreements that I had with President Zuma was in a disagreement that I had with him in 2012 when Ramaphosa was brought in at the ANC's national conference in Mangaung as the deputy president. And when he was elected, I walked onto the stage. I went up to President Zuma. I said, "President, I'm leaving this conference. I'm not even going to wait for your final concluding speech. Because this is the biggest mistake that you've made in your life." I know this man. I worked with him. He's a sellout. He only cares about money. You will regret what you've done today to resuscitate his political life for the rest of your life. And a while ago when I met President Zuma in Kandla, he said to me, "You know, you were right." I said, "Yes, it's sad that I..."
So would you believe me if I told you that we have white South Africans, racism. We have racism against white people. And to make it even more suspicious, or to make it even more ironical, black Africans in South Africa are being racist to the white South Africans here. We know all the history, how they came here. First, the Portuguese came into South Africa at a place called the Cape of Good Hope. A Cape of Good Hope is named because they were lost. They were trying to find a sea route to India because the Ottoman Empire had blocked the sea route to India. There's a sea route on top of the Horn of Africa. On top of Egypt, there's a sea route, a narrow strait that is shorter. So these people are looking for another sea route, not a shorter one. So they were lost in the Atlantic. So they were just cruising, and they saw a tiny island. This island, they came to call it the Cape of Good Hope because they saw hope after being lost in the sea for months now, you know. So they came, found this island of Cape Cape of Good Hope, and later on they wanted to meet the mainland, you know, the mainland. So Africa had never been visited before by the white person, but this sailor from Portuguese being led by Captain what's his name? I've just forgotten. What's his name? I just forgot the name, but once I remember the name, I will share with you. So they got to South Africa for a refreshment place, because the sea route is always very, very hard. You know, we have what we call seasickness. Seasickness is a serious thing. People grow ill in the sea, and people even die in those seas. So South Africa became a refreshment station for these Portuguese. Some Portuguese remained in South Africa, and some proceeded all the way to India. Yeah, they were going to a place called Goa. Goa is a small city to the west of India, along the Indian Ocean. Now they went there and they came back. So when Vasco da Gama came back, he went all the way to Mombasa. After Mombasa, he went down to Mozambique. After Mozambique, he went down to Cape of Good Hope, which is also South Africa in some way. It's not far. After that, he went all the way to Portugal. In Portugal, he told the king, King Henry, I think his name was King Henry, about a place he discovered, a place which people are naive, people are traditional. And so they called one another, and this is how these people came here. Another people who were interested were the people from Netherlands. The Dutch in South Africa are called the Afrikaners. The Afrikaners with the K, not C. You see, with the K, not C. We are Africans, but those are Afrikaans with K, and we have the C. So they also came here and decided to build their settlements here. You know, apartheid really did bad things to South Africa, you know, because it was after the Second World War, 3 years later, in 1948, apartheid was made into a constitutional law, which means that the government was recognizing suppression of black people. You know, even intermarriages were not allowed between a black person and a white person. It was very much prohibited. You see, these people came, took the best parts of Africa to themselves, and they made it be theirs on their own. The Africans were chased away from the prime lands of South Africa. They were pushed away to those to the arid areas, to the bad lands, you know. So what is happening is that these Africans, these white people, the British were also there. Sorry for forgetting that, you know. So the British colonized South Africa. Let's get it right. The Dutch did not colonize South Africa. They just came there as settlers, you know. After the Portuguese coming, they heard that the Portuguese were coming, so they also came. That is one point you should know. So the British were building railways, and they were building, they were planting sugarcane in South Africa, yes. So they needed labor. They needed labor for doing this. Remember, it is Britain which also colonized India. So Britain was a very huge empire back in the old days when it was Queen Victoria, not Elizabeth, but Queen Victoria, who was the emperor, you know. She was the queen of the Great Britain. Nowadays, I don't know if it's the Great Britain or just Britain. So the Britain went all the way to India. They brought some Indians to South Africa. So these Indians came to work for the white people, you know. They came here to work. And that is how they came. And right now, we have a huge percentage of Indians in South Africa. Now we don't have Indians. There are Indian South Africans. We have British South Africans. We have Dutch South Africans. And then we have the black, the original inhabitants of South Africa. You know, it's very funny that there's a very huge economic injustice between the people of South Africa. The white people have taken the best land. They're living in towns and best places, you know. Some places like Gauteng, some places like Capetown. These are places where the white people are living. Now the Indians are living in suburbs, also leafy suburbs, places which are not bad, they're really good. But now the African, the common African, the owner of the land is being chased away and is living poorly in places like Soweto. Okay, there used to be a slum in Soweto. Today, there is no slum in Soweto. If I'm wrong, I stand to be corrected. You can always tell me if I'm wrong, we stand to be corrected. So give your thoughts on the comment section. This is how these people came and settled here. So apartheid made sure that the black person will always be oppressed. The black person will always be looked down upon. So in order to control and to continue enjoying the things of Africa, apartheid was really favoring the white people. But then in 1994, 50 years later, is it 50? What is 1948 to 1994? I'm not certain, but almost 50 years. It's 46 years. 46 years later, Nelson Mandela was released from Robben Island to become the first black president. What Nelson Mandela did, he made amendments by the last president, the last white president, who was Frederick de Klerk. He made an arrangement that there will be no apartheid. Apartheid will cease to exist. And at least apartheid ceased to exist as a constitutional law, but it still existed after that. But it was not a constitutional law. It was not a common thing. It was not in the law. It is not something that will be brought into court, that a black person married a white person. No, that would not happen. But it would happen silently under the carpets, you know. One thing that Nelson Mandela never did, he never gave the black people their own lands back. Not all of them, or not to the significant quantities, because the arrangements or the agreements that he made with Frederick de Klerk ensured that the white people will continue enjoying the privileges minus apartheid. You see, what South Africa did is that they did away with apartheid, but we had another apartheid. We had the economic apartheid, economic injustices, you know. The black person was not now being racially profiled. He was now being economically profiled. The white and the Indians were taking the best places, were getting the best jobs. You see, if there was an interview, the white and the Indian would take the interview, even if they don't meet the qualifications, and an African is there who meets the qualification. It seems like a dream, but it's true. This is how it happened. So Julius Malema is standing up to do away with all this. Now here is where Julius Malema is important. Julius Malema is doing what Nelson Mandela never did. Remember, after Nelson Mandela, we have Thabo Mbeki. After Thabo Mbeki, we had Jacob Zuma. After Jacob Zuma, we have Cyril Ramaphosa. After Ramaphosa, we don't know who is going to be next, but we hope in this 2024, this May, we hope that the EFF leads. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. Everyone shares their opinion, right? So that's all. Julius Malema is trying to ensure the Africans get what they deserve back. The Africans are given what is rightfully theirs. And Julius Malema is straight in saying this. The liberation of Africans does not mean the attacking of white people, does not mean racially profiling against the white people. Now the white people are really afraid. They are really afraid. The thing that was protecting them, which is the apartheid, is no longer existing. It's not there. Many of these white people flew when the apartheid was removed out of the constitutional law. Many of them went away. We have like 5% of white people in South Africa. 5% is still a huge number owing to the total population of South Africa. And this is what happens. The 5% is still controlling the 95%. I don't see any justice here. Julius Malema says that the ANC is a product of apartheid, that the ANC is still silently oppressing the Africans. I don't know what I can say about this, but that is what Julius Malema says. All we want is a peaceful coexistence between the Africans, the African Indians, and the African white people of South Africa. That is what we need to know. And when somebody acquired land by hard work, when somebody acquired the land by their efforts, by their energy, by the rightful means, the land will go back to them. They will just have the land. But if they acquired it through apartheid, that is where the problem is going to come. And this is what the brother was trying to mention. It's really getting hard for South Africans who robbed African lands. And we hope that South Africa does a peaceful election and that they make their own decisions. We can't make decisions for them, but they have to remember decisions have consequences. So thank you for watching this video. Support me on this. Give the video a super thanks. You can always support me on Patreon. Give the video a super thanks, as I said before. Subscribe and share this video to spread awareness. So thank you for watching this video and see you in the next one. Don't forget to stay African, be African, and love Africa.